BCP.com. I'm Evan Wren, and this is the Big Country Preps Wednesday Night Podcast, a weekly look at the area athletic scene, what happened last week, and what's going on this week. I'm here with my partner, Dan Youngblood, via Zoom. And tonight, Dan, we have a very special guest, known far and wide in the high school football circles throughout Texas. Everybody knows Matt Stepp, and guess what? Matt is our guest tonight, and we're honored.
Yeah, this will be a really fun conversation. It's always good to talk to Matt. Like you said, he's a guy that's known far and wide across Texas high school football, has worked in within the sport for a long time with the Old Coach Network years ago, and more recently and currently with Texas Football Magazine. Does an awesome job. It's been fun getting to know him. Our paths cross quite a bit over the course of the season. We'll see him at a game or two every year, and then obviously at the state. And it's always fun to talk to Matt. And it's gonna be good to have him on this podcast. I think this will be a really fun conversation, getting to hit him with a lot of topics, both on the big country football scene, the statewide football scene, and just what he's doing over there at Texas football. So I'm excited to get to talk to him and get to have that conversation.
All right, before we get going, we need to thank a couple of our sponsors, beginning with For the Love of the Game Broadcasting, and our old friend Terry Slavens, owner of KLAX 93.5 FM out of Breckenridge, 97.7 FM, KATX out of Eastland, Classic Country AM 1330 out of Graham, 94.7 FM, KWKQ out of Graham, KROO 1430 AM out of Brecken, KWBY 98.5 FM out of Ranger. That is For the Love of the Game Broadcasting. Also, Rob Durham, sales consultant at Bear Chevrolet Buick Cadillac up in Breckenridge. If you're in the market for a vehicle, new or used, give Rob a shot. He's one of the nicest guys you'll ever want to meet. Call him at 254-559-2266. That's Rob Durham at Bear Chevrolet Buick Cadillac in Breckenridge. All right, before we get going, I owe everybody an apology. I've had 2 weeks worth of an upper respiratory infection. I have missed 2 Friday nights of football games, which was, I mean, you want to talk about borderline insanity, missing games on a Friday night. That was awful. And this is the first new podcast in 2 weeks because I lost my voice. It was gone. So it's coming back now. My doctor has helped me with a bunch of antibiotics. I've turned the corner. I'm feeling better. I'm looking fabulous, as you can see. And I'm going to be at a football game this week, Thursday night. I'll be at one. Sorry that I've missed this.
Well, it's good to have you back. First of all, I'm glad we can get back on the podcast and talk some football. It's been, like you said, 3 weeks, and a lot has happened since then. We've seen the end of district play, the start of the playoffs through the bi-district now, and we're in the area around now, and just a lot going on. So it's good to see you, good to hear you, and not hear you coughing as you have been on a lot of the phone calls we've had.
Oh, it was rough, man. It was rough. One more thing we need to remind folks of is to hit the subscribe button. You YouTubers out there, hit the subscribe button. And then after that, hit that little bell so you'll get notifications every time that Big Country Preps comes up with a new podcast or one of our quick quotes series, which have actually become pretty popular. People are liking that. But anyway, please hit that subscribe button and the little bell. Thank you.
And with that, we're going to, like I said, hit some wide-reaching topics with Matt. It looks like he's about ready to join us. You ready to go ahead and get him on?
Absolutely. All right. Joining us now from Dave Campbell's Texas Football Magazine, one of the best-known high school football journalists in the state of Texas, Matt Stepp, is with us. Matt, we really appreciate you joining us. Thank you.
Oh, any time for you guys. I love what you do there at Big Country Preps. It's one of my go-to stops every weekend when I'm catching up on the state, and listen to the podcast every week. And I'm a subscriber. I really enjoy y'all's work, and you guys do really great work covering the kids and the communities out there in the big country. Got a lot of respect for you guys.
Thank you. We appreciate it. All right. One thing that's at the top of our list we're curious about in our area. I know you watch high school football. You watch the high school football scene across the state, but in our area, tell us about the bigger surprises from the big country as you see it this year.
I think Clyde would stand out to me as a big surprise. Not the fact that they're good, because I think we thought they'd be good this year, especially if they were able to stay healthy, which they have been able to stay relatively healthy this year. But I don't think I anticipated them being 10-1 good at this point. Like Danny Dudgeon has done a great job with that program. They're playing great football. They're fun to watch. They're high flying. They put up a lot of points. And, I think they've got a great shot to be playing on Thanksgiving weekend. I think they've got a good shot this week against Shallow Water. So So I'm surprised by the fact that they're as good as they are. I think Clyde is borderline elite in 3A Division One, which says a lot because of how deep 3A Division One is this year across the state. And been very impressed with Sweetwater. I feel like Sweetwater's a year early. Russell Lucas has done a heck of a job kind of rebuilding that program with a relatively young team this year. They're in the second round of the playoffs against Monahans. That's an old rivalry. I know that dates back decades between those two programs. So that'll be a fun game out there in Seminole Friday night. But I feel like Sweetwater being in the area around the playoffs, they've kind of arrived a year early, in my opinion. So been really impressed with those two programs right there along I-20.
And I had a quick question for you, just in terms of your preparation and kind of keeping up with things, because obviously you do a really good job of staying informed statewide. You mentioned you're a subscriber to our site, and this is not an attempt to draw a shameless plug, but I'm just interested, like how do you keep up with with so many schools throughout the area and with so many areas? You've got to do a lot of research to keep up with everything that you're looking at.
Yeah, so people don't. I think you guys know this, but some people don't know. I do have a day job. Football is kind of a part-time job for me. It's kind of something that I do kind of as a hobby. But at my day job, I have about a 45-minute to hour commute living in the Metroplex to my job every day. So during football season, especially, I am an avid podcast listener, and I'm listening to high school football podcasts across the state. And I'm just trying to take nuggets and things like that here and there from different podcasts, listening to the guys that are because I can. Texas is a big state, and you can only be in one place at a time on Thursday, Friday, or Saturday night. So listening to guys who are on the ground every week is always helpful. Using the internet, reading news. I've got subscriptions to multiple websites and newspapers, so I read up on a lot of things. Social media helps with a lot. So it's just doing, sitting down, putting in the time to do the research, and then talking to coaches and texting coaches during the day. I've built up a pretty strong network of coaches around the state of Texas, so I feel like if something surprises me on a Friday night, or if I see a score that really jumps off the page, I can pick up the phone and call or text that coach and be like, "Hey, tell me about what happened Friday night. What happened in this game? What'd you see? Why did the game go this particular way?" So just kind of like I said, just putting the research in, putting the time in to research and taking pride in what I do and try to be as knowledgeable as possible. You can't know everything all the time, and we're dealing with high school football and high school kids, and you just never know what's going to happen. But you can try to do as much research as you can and stay up to speed on things.
When I was with the Reporter News, one of my responsibilities was to break news as fast as possible. It was my responsibility to break coaching changes, etc. And one of the most annoying things I found about you is how difficult it was to beat you to these stories. And when I'd be, I knew when one was coming up, and I'd be telling the coach, "Don't tell Stepp, don't tell Stepp. Let me break this thing." I think it would literally have to be arrangements, to beat you. Now, with Big Country Preps, we've got an assistant, Brandon McAuliffe, who's kind of our breaking news guy. But man, when I was with the paper, that was my job, and you were tough. How do you manage statewide to be so effective at breaking the news like this?
I think, and you guys know this as well as anyone. Being a journalist is a lot of it's relationships and building those relationships. And over time, I've built up enough relationships and been a person of I try to be a person of character and keep my word. And if a coach tells me something, I tell a coach I'm going to sit on it till this time, that I sit on it, and that's kind of rare in today's world to do that, because everyone wants to be first, and I love to be first, but I found that sometimes maybe if I'm not first on this story, I'll be first on 20 others because I'll kept my word to that particular coach. And coach, you guys know this as well as anyone. Coaches talk, they network, and so they'll say, "Hey, that you can talk to Matt Stepp. He won't burn you. He'll do what he says." And I've also had an understanding that this isn't college football. This isn't the NFL. We're dealing with high school kids. We're dealing with minors, and so I think when you're dealing with things like that, it's a little more sensitive. And I think you do need to give the adult in charge the chance to break that news to his kids first. So there's times where I'll know about a coaching change, and the coach will say, "Hey, I can't, please don't post it until 3:00 because I'm not going to have a chance to talk to my kids until 3:00. And then a TV reporter will break it at 2:00. And I'll miss that one, but hopefully down the road, I'll pick up 10 or 15 others that maybe no one else cares about, or that kind of thing. So I think it's just like anything. You build relationships, you network, and you build your sources up, and you don't burn your sources, right? A journalist never outs a source, and so I always keep my sources close to the vest and just try to be a man of my word and keep up with things. And the local guys, like the local guys will beat me, and that's okay. I don't mind. I always defer to the local guys if I can, but it's just more about networking and keeping those relationships healthy.
Yeah, and the coaches definitely appreciate that, and we took that approach. We still do, and I'm glad to hear that's your stance on it, because the coaches, man, that's their livelihood, So
Yeah.
Absolutely, they appreciate it, and we've always taken that stance.
And you mentioned that, like you said, you can only be in one place at a time. We have that same issue, obviously, but I mean, I know Evan and I find it difficult to pick that one game in the area or the one local game a week. You're talking about an entire state. I'm sure you look at a slate and say, dang, there's 15, 25 games I'd like to be at. Just talk about kind of the process of how you do kind of come to the game that you maybe go out to, and how tough is it to pass up some of those on weeks when you know that you've got, a lot of really good matchups.
Well, so I'll answer the last question first. It's really tough. Every week I've got FOMO, where I'm just like, oh man, I wish I was at this game. I wish I could be at this game. There's so many good games across the state. Now geography limits me in some ways during the week because of my my day job. Really can't go more than a couple of hours any direction from my day job, and I work near DFW Airport. So as you guys know, Metroplex traffic 2 hours might be to Weatherford from the airport, depending on traffic that day. So geography limits me a lot on Thursdays and Fridays. Saturdays I have a little more flexibility, but not a lot of people play on Saturdays, so really I'm limited to Houston or San Antonio for the most part. So I try to find games that have some sort of angle or some sort of hook for me to go to, and sometimes that might be seeing a team that I've never seen before, or going to a stadium that I've never been to before, or a new coach getting hired at a place, or I saw a coach at coaching school and I promised that coach I'd come see them. That was how I ended up last year at the Comanche Brady season opener. Is I told Coach Escobar I would come see him play, and so I was like, you know what? I told Coach Escobar I was going to come see him play. I'm going to go see him week one and knock it out and get it out of the way. And so I did that. And then, this year I went to a game down in San Antonio. It was Randolph and Cole. And people were like, why are you going to Randolph and Cole? Well, it was a unique angle for me because those are two high schools that are located on military installations. Randolph is located on the Air Force base down there. Cole is located on the Army base down there. So you basically had the Texas high school football version of Army versus Air Force. So try to find angles like that. It could be a big rivalry game, or it could be something as simple as I went to Shotwell this year for Abilene and Cooper because they were opening up the new press box, So just try to find an angle or a hook here and there. And during the playoffs, I'm more of a value shopper. I really try to find playoff games where I can go see multiple games in a day, especially on the weekends. I want to be able to see more teams and more playoff games.
I know you've got a following in El Paso, which is a real challenge to get out there. How many times have you managed to get out there? It's just 8 hours for you, probably.
Yeah, so thank you, Southwest Airlines. If Southwest Airlines wants to sponsor this podcast, you guys need to do it. Southwest Airlines needs to sponsor Big Country Preps. I've been out there, I think, for football games 3 or 4 times now. I drove once, and I said never again, and so I haven't driven ever since. I try to find a good rate on Southwest Airlines and fly out there. But I think it's been 3 or 4 times that I've gone out there, and it's a lot of fun. El Paso is a beautiful city, great food, really great people, really nice people. You think El Paso, and it's so far out west, but they're El Paso folks are typical West Texans. They're very friendly. They'll do anything for you. If I didn't have a hotel room, there'd be 10 people offering me a place to stay that night. People offering you to come over and eat dinner with them. So just really nice folks out there. And I think the football out there has improved. They had a rough week this week in the first round of the playoffs, but I think over the past 10, 15 years, the quality of football out there has improved.
It has, noticeably so.
And shifting back to our area specifically, we've got obviously some teams that have gotten off to really good starts. You mentioned a couple of those in the surprises part. Just who do you see as being some of the teams in our area, the Big Country and extended, when you talk about Brock and some of those others, as having the best opportunities from this area to get to Arlington?
I think it starts in the smaller schools with Albany, the defending 2A Division II state champs. They've done nothing to make me not think they could make a repeat run. I think their road is a little bit tougher, not because Albany's taken a step back, but because the teams in their region and in Region One, I think have improved overall. But Denny Faith's done a great. Denny Faith could have retired. After they won a state championship, he's been there forever. He's got nothing left to prove. So when he decided to stick around for another year, he told me that they're going to be. He thinks they're going to be really good again, and they're going for a repeat. And they've lived up to that bargain all year long. I think they're right there as I think they're the favorite in Region Two, and I think they'll be a favorite in a semifinal in Region One if they can get there. So I feel like Albany is the best shot. You go to 2A Division One and Hawley. I think got off to a slow start, but I think but part of that is their schedule. They play a really tough schedule that's front loaded. I think they found themselves as the year has gone along and found their identity and they've stuck to it. That game against Panhandle this week is going to be a real shootout. I watched Panhandle last week, scored 92 points or something crazy. So they really can. I think Hawley and Panhandle could put up a lot of points, but Hawley's the defending state champs, and I think they're going to be right there in the mix once again. And then obviously Brock in 3A Division One. This is kind of their last rodeo in 3A before they make the move to 4A. I think there's no question about it. They're the team to beat in Region One in 3A Division One, and rightfully so. You look at their record and think they're 8-3, but they had 4 losses last year and played for a state championship. So there's no reason to think Brock won't be in the mix again. The matchup with Region 2 is always tough in the state semifinals. Could see a rematch with Malakoff this year. Malakoff to me is better than they were last year, so they'll be a tough out. But you get to the semifinals, you're one game away from state. There's no reason to think that they can't make it. I think the road in the bigger classifications is obviously a little bit tougher for the big country, but for me, for my money, I mean, how cool would this be? I think there is a pretty decent chance we get a Stephenville Brownwood state semifinal, and I think that would just be unbelievable for the big country and for the state of Texas. Could you imagine? I was actually talking to Tepper about this and saying, what if Stephenville and Brownwood played in a state semifinal? Where would they play that game at? I mean, because I don't know. I mean, Tarleton would be big enough to hold it because of all the expansions they made the stadium, but I don't know if Brownwood would want to play that game in Tarleton and Stephenville. So would they have to go all the way to Waco to play, or would they go to St. Angelo to play? I don't know. It'd be that'd be half the fun of that, because I mean they draw 20 or 30,000 people easily for that game, in my opinion.
Send it to Abilene.
Yeah, send it to Abilene.
I mean, let's put some temporary bleachers up at Shotwell Stadium. Let's ring it. Let's pack 20,000 people into Shotwell Stadium.
Wouldn't that be something?
Yeah.
Well, tell us about the other regions, the other class, all the classifications of the regions. Just some of the teams, the top teams that you fully expect to see at Jerry World, or at least have a great shot at getting there outside of our area.
Yeah, I obviously you guys right now don't have any 6A schools in the area, so we'll skip 6A. But I mean, 6A real quick. But you got the usual powerhouses in 6A, right? Duncanville, North Shore, DeSoto, all teams that I think are going to be in the mix. In Class 5A, I really love this Abilene High team. They got a tough test against Denton Ryan, but we all know in Region 1 it goes through Aledo. They're the team to beat, and I think we're on a crash course for an Aledo Longview state semifinal in 5A Division 1, which I think Aledo and Longview are the 2 best teams in the state of Texas. So that might be a de facto state championship game. 5A Division 2, I think you guys obviously with Abilene, with Wiley and Cooper still playing, they've got tough games this week. But you look at 5A Division 2 and you talk about Region 2 is where a lot of the power is with multiple top 10 teams in the state, including 2-time defending state champion South Oak Cliff. Right there in Region 2, but you got 3 or 4 other state-ranked teams. So Region 2 is going to be a meat grinder in 5A Division 2. 4A Division 1, we talked about Stephenville Brownwood. I think those teams are teams to watch. China Spring, who lost to Stephenville, is going to be in the mix, back-to-back state champions. I love what's going on in East Texas in Region 3 with Kilgore, Chapel Hill, and Lindale, all from the same district, potentially all making it to a regional semifinal. So that'll be fun to watch. 4A Division 2, I mean, there's one team to talk about, and that's Carthage. I mean, everybody knows about Carthage and nine state championships in 9 tries in the past 15 years or so, and they're locked and loaded for another run this year. They're 11-0, and they've been the wire-to-wire #1 team in Texas. 3A Division One, we talked about Brock. I think outside of that, Columbus in Region 3, Franklin, Little River Academy, Lorena, all really, really good teams, all in the same region in Region 3. And then Malakoff in Region 2 is a team to watch. 3A Division 2, I think there's not a lot of drama in 3A Division 2 until we get to the state semifinals when we get Gunner and Canadian playing for the 800th time. It seems like Gunner and Canadian, it's just a December tradition that those two teams play in the state semifinals, and I don't see any reason why Gunner and Canadian won't play again. They played a classic at ACU last year, and I think we'll see more of it this year. 2A Division 1, I think Refugio and Timpson down in Region 3, Region 4 are teams to watch, but keep an eye on Toller. And I know you guys, Toller plays some teams in the big country. They're kind of just on the outside of y'all's coverage area, if memory serves correctly. Toller is really, really good in Region 2. And I think we're looking at a Toller and Hawley state semifinal for the chance to go to Arlington, which would be a blast, a fun game to watch. Toller is really, really strong. And then in 2A Division 2, I think Albany and Mart, we may be on a collision course for Albany Mart, a rematch after Mart. Albany took out Mart last year in pretty dominating fashion.
I'm looking forward to the potential maybe of see what that Collinsville team can do in Region 2 as well. There's a team that I've been following for a while. So
they played Albany in the regional final last year. I think Albany won, but Collinsville did put up some points in that game, if memory serves. I think it was one of those 60-30 kind of games.
Yeah, and they've got a really good offense this year, so I'm interested to see if Albany can. We'll have to go through them again to get through that region.
But having seen Toller personally, I'm a believer.
Yeah,
they've impressed me, and they've been doing it without their best player all year. I think their running back, who was such a big part of what they did last year, I think he's either back or he's going to be coming back in the next week or so. He's fully recovered from, I think, a broken foot.
Well, that's scary.
Yeah.
He's
scary. If he's coming back, that's scary.
Yeah, he's a good player
with an improved passing game there too. But you had mentioned our locals at the 5A level. Abilene Heights obviously had a great season. They got a really what should be a really fun matchup with Ryan this week. You had also mentioned that both Wiley and Cooper are underdogs in theirs. Wiley playing Argyle, Cooper with Colleyville Heritage. Just you've obviously probably seen those Metroplex area schools more than we have. We've obviously seen those on several occasions in the playoffs. Wiley lost to Argyle last year by 7 points in the fourth round. This year it's a second round matchup. Just thoughts on those matchups, kind of what our locals will face in those.
Well, the Denton Ryan game is fun. Tepper and I really pushed for this game to be on Valley Sports. We thought it would be a fun matchup and a fun showcase to the state of Texas of two really good teams. Denton Ryan, really good, talented young defense. It's kind of grown as the year has gone along. But what's been key for them is after a really bad loss to the Colony earlier in the year, they moved their receiver, Braden Mussett, to quarterback. And it's changed their identity but it's given them an identity. They really didn't have an offensive identity early in the year. And when they moved Mussett to quarterback, it's made them kind of a run heavy. They're kind of a power spread team. And they have two running backs and then Mussett, all who can run the football, and they just rotate them in and just go right at you. There's nothing fancy about what they do offensively. They're just very effective at it. And they're always tough on defense. I think their key is going to be trying to limit Abilene's big plays. Abilene High has been such a big play offense all year, with Dylan Slack leading that offense, with Rylan Bradford and Braden Henry. Chad Lars done a great job coming in for Bam Rayshaw. And then Bam's back now for Abilene, so that's a boost. I think it's going to be a heck of a ball game. I think I lean a little bit to Denton Ryan in that game, but I think it's a real toss-up. Argyle, you guys, Abilene, Wiley, and Argyle have had plenty of battles in the playoffs. Argyle's a team that everyone knows in the state. They're a little young this year, and they struggled early, but they found themselves. Their starting quarterback got hurt in, I believe, week 8 or 9, and they had a young sophomore quarterback that's come in and played really well. I think Argyle is not quite as strong as they were last year, so I could see Abilene Wiley pulling off what the state would be considered a mild upset in that game. Keep an eye on that one. And then Cooper, they're an underdog in this one. Colleyville Heritage is really strong under first-year head coach Jerry Edwards, who came to Colleyville from Killeen Harker Heights. He led Harker Heights to a regional final in 6A last year, so a very, very good coach. Colleyville's been very strong all year, but I think Cooper may have the best player on the field in that game in Daniel Bray. He's a really special running back, and I saw him earlier this year against Abilene High, and he really impressed me. So I think there's a path to victory for all three teams, but you get to this point in the playoffs, especially in the bigger classifications, they're all tough games.
What are some of your favorite stadiums to cover a ball game at that we would be familiar with in our area? And are there any that you maybe have on your bucket list to go to?
So I'd say my absolute favorite stadium in the big country for sure is Buckaroo Stadium in Breckenridge.
Really?
Love that
What's
place.
unique?
It's a very unique place. I love it. I love those stadiums that are kind of tucked in and there's not a
Yeah.
lot of room and it just feels old school football. And but they've done a nice job keeping it. They've made some modern upgrades. They take great care of it. The oil derrick and the oil rig in the back of the behind the home bleachers is a nice touch and very West Texas to me. So it's a great place. Love the Mustang Bowl, obviously. I mean, how can you not love the Mustang Bowl in Sweetwater? It's such a historic place. And it's just you can just feel the history and tradition when you walk in there as well. Same thing in Brownwood at Gordon Wood Stadium. It's a great place. Love the Brownwood Lions entrance when they come into the stadium. It's very unique in the state of Texas. And I'd say if there's a couple that I haven't been to that I'd like to cross off the bucket list, I really want to see a game in Cisco. I've seen Cisco play many times in the playoffs. They're such a they're a little down this year, but they're still in the second round of the playoffs, which tells you, I'm saying they're down. They're still in the playoffs. Cisco is a place that I'd love to see a game at. I've never covered a game there. That's probably the one in the big country that I haven't been to that I would really like to get to and cover again is Chelsea Field and Cisco.
It's kind of expanding the scope a little bit. What are some of your favorite stadiums statewide? What are some places you really like to see games?
Love the Tomato Bowl in Jacksonville. It's like right in downtown Jacksonville. They remodeled it about 5 years ago and kept. Again, it's kind of the same thing with Breckenridge. It's an old stadium, but they've made it new again and done a lot of nice things to it to give it some of that modern amenity touch, but keeping the history of the stadium. Love the Tomato Bowl. In the Metroplex, I love Mesquite Memorial Stadium. It's a unique place, but it's a very nice place. Love Mesquite Memorial. In the Houston area, I really love the Barry Center in Cypress. That's a beautiful stadium. It's modern and very nice, but it keeps the noise in. It gets very loud when you have a big crowd there. I'd say in San Antonio, I love Alamo Stadium. Alamo Stadium is another one of those remodels that they rebuilt and made it nice and with a lot of the bells and whistles. That's a cool place. And then my number one stadium in the state is actually out in El Paso. It's R.R. Jones Stadium. I'm sure you guys have seen pictures of it on Texas Bob and other websites. It's a beautiful stadium. One of the oldest stadiums in the state. Very unique. It's got a half horseshoe type feel to it. The school sits on a hill right behind it and kind of overlooks it. Look, it's just a beautiful stadium. If you've never seen pictures of it, it's been named, one of the top 10 stadiums in the country by multiple outlets. And for me, it's my number one stadium in Texas. It's R.R. Jones Stadium out there in El Paso.
Dan and I bust our rears covering our base 40, which is basically just the 40 11-man teams in the big country, plus the 6-man teams that we covered as well. But that gives us a full appreciation of what you go through because you're covering, well over 1,000 teams at Dave Campbell's. And I mean, it takes us 3 or 4 months to do all our prep work. My gosh, you've got over 1,000 teams to get ready for it. But tell us about your prep work when it starts and how much goes into it.
So we start working on the magazine. Usually we have our first meetings to discuss the cover in late January. We start to meet and kind of kick around our ideas for the covers of the magazine. And typically coaches questionnaires for the summer magazine go out in around tax day when the first questionnaires go out. And really I would say we start writing previews and working on the magazine basically for 2.5 months, basically all of March, all of April, and about half of May. Usually towards the middle of May is when we start doing editing and going back and checking things and working on page design and those types of things to get the magazine ready. So I'd say the magazine's we typically put the magazine to bed. We send it off to print usually the Friday before Memorial Day. So it's about 3.5 months. And I use that time because I write a lot of questionnaires. I use a lot of that time when I'm getting those questionnaires in to do my kind of initial research on teams and that kind of thing. And that research continues into the summer. I go out to a lot of 7-on-7 tournaments and and visit with coaches. The 7-on-7 for me is not so much. I'm not watching the 7-on-7. I do post the scores because people are interested in it. But for me, it's about working smarter and not harder. If I can go out to a 7-on-7 and have 16 head coaches in one place, I can pick their brains for a couple of hours because they're not doing anything. They have to be there, and talk to them about their team. So I use that for a lot of prep work as well. Just talking to coaches and just kind of shooting the bull and getting kind of their intel and what they feel strengths and weaknesses are, who they think is going to be good this year, those types of things. And that research just continues on into the off season and into the start of the season. Cause I feel like there's constantly new information coming in, and you've constantly got to parse through it and think, what we think in week 1 is going to happen could change a lot by week 11, because of the things that have happened during the season. So I think it's a constant thing, and you're just trying to stay up to speed as much as you can, and just talk to as many people and build those relationships and networks.
And Evan talked about the magazine. I don't know if you can see, but back here, these are all Texas football magazines. So it goes back to I don't know, about 2006. But so obviously the hard copy of the magazine is something that means a lot to a lot of people, myself included. One thing I found interesting, and as a member of the website as well, Evan is as well, y'all really amped up the digital presence. That's been something that seems to be important to y'all. So it's not just, y'all do all that work to get the magazine out, but you also have a really good, a great website. So just how much effort has been put in to have that digital presence and to be something that's useful to folks year round, particularly those who are as interested in high school football as you guys are, as we are, and as fans are.
Yeah, I think it's one of those deals where you gotta evolve with the times, and the print product is great, and it's a legacy product, and it means a lot to us. Almost as a nod to Mr. Campbell in a lot of ways, in the legacy that he built. But for us, it's staying up with the times and making sure we're not just relevant in August or June or July in the summer when the magazine comes out, but staying relevant year round and covering the sport year round, because it has turned into such a year round thing. And I think it's just more about being nimble and evolving with the times, and you can still do good journalism and still do good stories digitally. I loved as a kid reading the newspaper and still enjoy getting a newspaper in my hand, but I also enjoy reading great journalism. And if that means I have to read great journalism on a computer screen, then that's okay. I think it's just more about covering the sport and the game that we love and across the state of Texas.
Matt, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We appreciate your time, and I'm sure we'll run into you in the coming weeks as the playoff brackets narrow down. I'm sure we'll run into you.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Appreciate it. Love what you guys do.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And that was Matt Stepp of Dave Campbell's Texas Football Magazine. Everybody knows him and everybody respects him. What a job he's done. What a job he's got to do. What a mammoth undertaking. It absolutely blows my mind that those guys get that job done. You and I bust our rears, covering our base 40 and, the extra teams that we covered, but, beyond that. But wow, it's a tremendous effort from those guys year in, year out, and they're always consistently good.
Yeah, very good. And I just enjoy having him on. This is obviously not the first time we've had him on the podcast. It's been a little while since we last did, but it's always fun getting to talk to him. And one of the reasons is I think he shares the same passion for high school football that you and I that we have. And it's always fun to talk to people that love the sport as much as we do. And obviously, a guy who really puts in a whole lot of work to remain informed. And like you said, you're talking about a whole statewide network of schools. So very cool to get Matt on. I really enjoyed that conversation, as I always do when we do have him on. And every time I get to see him on the road, just a really fun podcast. I hope everybody else enjoyed that as much as I did.
All right. With that, it's about time to wrap up the Big Country Preps Wednesday night podcast. But before we do that, we want to remind you we've got 3 separate subscription packages here at Big Country Preps. We got a monthly for $5 a month. We got a semi-annual 6-month subscription where we knock that price down to $4 a month. And then we've got an annual 12-month subscription where we knock the price down to $3 a month. That's $36 for a full year of Big Country High School athletic coverage.
We'd also like to remind you that if you ever see a photo you like in any one of our galleries, those are available for purchase. We have photo downloads available for $7, as well as some keepsakes and prints. So make sure you check those out. As you scroll through the site, you'll notice pretty quickly we take a lot of photos from these games we're at, and we were at a lot of games, really all year long, throughout the entire school year across numerous sports. So make sure you check this out. That's something that we really enjoy doing, something we are very proud of here at BigCountryPreps.com.
All big country, all high school, all the time. Welcome home.